You talked about people, being able to move to where opportunities are. And during the Great Recession, I said that a lot. I said the best thing as a young person you can have on a resume is mobility, being able to move to where the jobs are, where the opportunities are. And Mogul gives people the chance to do that. I think it's kind of ideal for young investors that don't have a lot of capital and they don't necessarily want to buy their own house, right? Because then they're stuck. They can be a real estate investor with 250 bucks, right?
Exactly right. And so the idea came about really because at Goldman, we were seeing returns north of 17, 18% plus, and we thought there's got to be an easier way to invest in that real estate. And so really it came down to let's take the expertise and the training that we had gotten during our time at Goldman and provide it to a platform style business. And so provide those level of underwriting, that level of diligence to the end investor. And so then an end investor could invest $250 minimums into a property, receive rental income the second Tuesday of every month, appreciation in real time, and tax benefits at year end. So a 10% yield could stay 10% and might be a passive loss for income reporting purposes. And I mean, we like to joke here. The IRS wrote the tax code to incentivize two things: procreation and home ownership. We can't help with the first, but we sure as heck can help with that second. And
Right.
so really
And the first one is down, by the way. People got to start having babies.
Yeah. And so the idea is Mogul is the purest way for anyone to invest in real estate. It also affords exactly the flexibility that you had said. A lot of these markets that these young professionals are working in are break-even cities, whether it be the New Yorks, the San Franciscos, the LAs of the world.
Yeah, they don't
And
work.
so,
Yeah.
so to invest in a city with high price to rent dislocation and high equity upside, like a Houston or a Dallas, is going to take a lot to actually go out there and diligence and vet the market. And so rather than that, you can just invest from a computer from wherever you are for the $250 minimum.
Yeah, well, I think the big key is the minimum. I mean, look, my company vets deals, and we do that, but our investors need to have at least $30,000, okay, to get into a deal. That's pretty much the way that looks. I want to ask you before you go about the crazy political environment we've got. I mean, listen, I think Trump is doing really good things. Feel free to disagree with me, but I think it's going to be very positive for the country. But it's not going to be without some bumps in the road. You can't deport millions of people. You can't take them out of the economy. You can't lay off millions of government workers and have that not have some impact, right? And you can't put a bunch of tariffs on input costs for home builders and not see prices go way up. What do you think is going to be the net effect of some of these policies?
Yeah, so obviously I like to look at it even from a non-political way, at just the way it's going to shape the economy. And so a lot of his ideologies in a vacuum shape the economy quite negatively, but when combined, it actually shapes the economy quite positively. And by that, I mean, obviously going out to market and raising tariffs and forcing that on another country. And also, let's see if that actually happens. He obviously backs off of it, puts the pedal down on it
Yeah.
quite frequently, changing and pretty flippant when it comes to that. But the idea that he has of charging another country a tariff for importing goods here, yes, that would directly impact the consumer and hurt the consumer, which obviously in a vacuum does not make a ton of sense. But if you zoom out to another part of his economic plan, he wants to reduce the federal income tax to zero. He wants to get
Well,
rid of
wait. But I got it. But before we leave the tariff topic, well, maybe you're getting to that because you're saying external revenue, right?
exactly. So
Right.
it's
But,
in combination.
yeah. But
They
before we
work.
even get there, we have to talk about the point of tariffs always is to protect the country's workers and create jobs and capital investment within the country. And Trump has already done that like a genius. I mean, Apple was going to spend $500 billion in Mexico, and now they're spending it in the US. All of these companies, TSMC investing in the US, SoftBank, et cetera, et cetera. That capital, that FDI is coming into the country or staying in the country because they're afraid of the tariffs. Apple, over the next 4 years, is going to employ 20,000 new American workers. And those people are going to be highly paid. This is what tariffs are designed to do. So, yes, it makes prices higher for the consumer. I get it, right? But it also makes incomes higher, right?
Well, it does when it comes down to also cutting down the federal income tax. So it's
Right.
25% tariff, 25% reduction in taxes paid from income, that obviously marries up pretty well and fits in a great space. As
And
for,
higher pay at the job, not just lower taxes. But the
but I
net
will
effect
say
is,
some of the
yeah,
specialties, it's going to be very tough to hire for. And what we've seen out of Phoenix, especially TSMC,
yeah.
devoted $1 billion to build a semiconductor plant. No one in the US knows how to make the semiconductors at that plant. And so now they're flying in workers to actually teach other people how to make it at the
Yeah.
plant, which obviously in the long
I'm in
run,
favor of those type of guest workers. You know,
yeah.
yeah, they'll have a tax nexus in the U.S. Some of them might buy the $5 million gold card, okay, for the CEOs and so forth, right? The C-suite people, and they might just stay, and that's more capital, that's more brain power in the U.S., right? But go ahead.
So, I mean, yeah, exactly. In isolation, a lot of these things are radical in nature and will come with a bunch of bumps. But when in combination of one
Yeah.
another, they're not as crazy. We can model out whatever we want to do, but ultimately, when it comes down to the actual action taken versus just bluster about some deal being struck,
Yeah.
that's when we're going to truly know the outcome of obviously all these different initiatives. And I mean, what we're seeing with Doge in particular, obviously that comes with some pretty high tension, especially living in DC. You can't mention Doge without multiple hairs on people's necks
Because
raising.
everybody in DC is on the take.
When you think about Doge and think about the way they're going about it, he's going about it in the way that a private sector would work, in the
Yeah.
sense of like, let's cut it, see if it doesn't work, and if we need to repair it,
If
then
the
we'll
world
repair
ends,
it.
we'll hire some more people again or throw some money at it,
Exactly.
right?
So
Yeah.
like cutting, for instance, the people, what was it, working on our actual nuclear arsenal,
Right.
firing them because they didn't know what they were doing, and they were like, oh, they must not be doing anything important. Then they'd be like, oh wait, actually, come back. You're actually doing something
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
important.
I know there's going to be some problems like that, of course. You can't
But
upset the
that's what I'm
apple cart.
saying is
Yeah.
I think Doge, it's going about it in a good way, in the sense that they're cutting it really rapidly and moving very quickly.
Yeah.
You've never seen this level of pace from the government, and so they're going about it in a very brutal way. It just will obviously make a lot of people tense because it will impact them directly. But at the same time, as long as they realize a mistake and fix it, which is a lot of what Elon does at all his different companies, then it's a net positive for the economy. It's a net positive for America. It's a net positive for everything. So I think looking at it in isolation and looking at it, and you can always point to things that are negative about either side of the aisle. Regardless of that, if it betters the US economy in the long run and betters it even past the next 4 years, that's going to be an impact that impacts everyone for years to come. And so, yes, it will be a year of turmoil and a year of guessing what's going to happen next. But at the same time, if we're in for a change, we might as well do it pretty rapidly and not think about it the way that a company thinks about the next quarter. Let's think about the next 20 years past this
Yeah.
year.
I couldn't agree with you more. And, there's one other softer point about the Doge cuts when it comes to cutting the workers, right? Everybody would have to admit that the vast majority of people in a government job have lost their edge, right? They're not competing in the marketplace. They can't get fired. I mean, well, until now, but there's just no chance of being fired from your stupid government job, right? Most of the time. And so those people going into the marketplace, they're going to get better. They're going to bring their edge back, and they're going to be better people. They're going to be better workers. And, I think they're going to start taking more pride in themselves, and they're going to start working on themselves, and they're just going to become more qualified people because they're going to be forced to, right? Because the companies will not tolerate the mentality the government will tolerate. They just won't have the security, and that'll just make them better. They'll just get better.
I do think competition obviously makes everyone better, and all tides rise the ships, whatever that saying
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
so to
The
speak.
rising tide floats all ships. Yeah,
Exactly. But I do think there obviously are very skilled workers in government. It's just going to
sure.
make a majority of the people that were kind of clinging on to it. Like, for instance, I didn't realize that there is a mine out in Pennsylvania, and this is not a conspiracy theory. I looked into it a lot because I wrote
Okay.
about it in a newsletter that we wrote, because I
Hey,
said,
we entertain a few conspiracy
yeah,
theories. Don't worry.
exactly. So there's a literal mine out in Pennsylvania that government workers, when they retire, it's a manual paperwork process. That's
Oh,
why
I
it's
know. I
6
saw that.
months.
Yeah, yeah. I
Exactly.
saw
It's
that. Yeah,
crazy. So things like that, the fact that they just processed for the first time on a computer a retirement account in under a day, like that's
Major
crazy.
progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great. It's a whole new level of transparency, and it's really interesting. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on for sure, but it is chaotic.